Today we want answers, and no one has come to us and said this is what happened that day. That's all we want.
Tonight, a northern Manitoba father fights for workplace safety improvements after his son died on the job.
It's an opportunity for us to show respect to the Métis community and to signify the importance of Louis Riel in our country's history.
The Métis flag is raised for the first time at Ottawa City Hall, and young spirit singers get signed to an international talent agency. Good evening. Welcome to APTN National News. I'm Melissa Ridgen. The family of a First Nation man killed while working in northern Manitoba is still looking for answers nearly 2 years after his death. An investigation was launched into the workplace fatality, but new details surrounding the case has the family concerned that safety is not being taken seriously. Here's Brittany Hobson.
It's been nearly 2 years since Todd Metuashing died while working on a hydro dam in northern Manitoba. To date, his family knows little about what happened that day.
Today we want answers, and no one has come to us and said this is what happened that day. That's all we want.
Metuashing was working for Forbes Brothers at the time of his death. The company was contracted by Manitoba Hydro to build a transmission line from the Kiosk generating station to another nearby station. Swan says his son was helping load steel beams onto a semi-truck when one of the beams fell and landed on his head. He believes more needs to be done to protect workers.
Workplace safety is not doing enough to provide safety for all workers in this province.
Workplace Safety and Health launched an investigation which was completed last year. Swan has yet to see the report.
And we've been told, don't talk to anyone, you'll mess up the investigation. Like, how do we mess up the investigation when we're not even involved or privy to anything?
After the investigation, Forbes Brothers faced 7 charges under the Workplace Safety and Health Act. Swan says the company has agreed to pay a fine totaling $150,000 instead of going to trial. In a statement, a representative for Forbes Brothers said they would not comment because the case is still before the courts. They added, "We worked with Manitoba Workplace Safety and Health to update our hazard analysis to ensure a similar incident could not happen again." The leader of the Manitoba Liberal Party has advocated for the family. Dougald Lamont says Manitoba should have to follow federal law, which would compel Forbes Brothers to face criminal charges.
We often see that almost never happens when it's an accident at a workplace. Even though a corporation may be found liable, even though a corporation may plead guilty, that almost nobody ever goes to jail.
Swan says the family isn't seeking compensation. They just want to ensure all workers get home safe. Brittany Hobson, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
A Manitoba judge has unleashed a scathing indictment of the bail system that he says too frequently violates the charter rights of Indigenous Northerners in the province. Martin began his 40-page ruling saying the case was a, quote, disturbing chronicle of a dysfunctional bail system. The case involved 2 separate and unrelated people from different Northern First Nations who were kept in jail for several weeks and denied a timely bail hearing. He ruled that constituted a violation of their charter rights. Martin suggested, quote, fresh eyes conduct a review of the system. He blamed the judicial system itself for the problem, including justices of the peace, Crown attorneys, and defense lawyers whose, quote, acquiescence has fueled the problem. Martin awarded $5,000 plus costs to the 2 lawyers who brought the case to court, but nothing for the Indigenous people whose charter rights were violated, one of whom was found not guilty of the charges he was held on, while the Crown had stayed charges against the other. A Montreal-based agency is under fire for its treatment of Indigenous people in the child welfare system. According to a new report out of Concordia University, the agency known as Batshaw Youth and Family Centres is guilty of systemic racism. Entitled 2 Steps Forward, 1 Step Back, the report interviewed both Indigenous people in the system as well as frontline workers. Among the recommendations, more training for those workers, more Indigenous representation through hiring and including advocacy groups, Inuktitut translation services for Inuit Métis co-author Elizabeth Fast adds that Batshaw lags behind other agencies in Canada and have yet to implement any of the 3-year-old Truth and Reconciliation Commission's calls to action.
We need more services. We need to respond to the calls to action. That wasn't happening. There were, kind of piecemeal things put in place. There was no will to change the hiring practices, to have more Indigenous representation, to start to move to a best practice approach, which would be to gradually give control over to the Indigenous organizations that would have the ability to provide more culturally safe services.
To round out his sit-downs with party leaders, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau met today with Green Party caucus leader Elizabeth May. The two discussed climate change, land claims in BC, and the need to immediately address the national inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls' call for justice. Trudeau said he would bring legislation to implement the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. May said this time the Liberals will need to do more.
When Jody Wilson-Raybould was Minister of Justice was when the decision was made to support Romeo's bill. It would have died an early death at second reading had the Liberals not supported it. Could they have gotten it through? Absolutely. By making it a government bill, it could have gotten through where there was less time available for the Conservative senators to delay it.
Now to Iqaluit, where the shutdown of government computers due to a ransomware attack is about to enter its 3rd week. Add to the mix the fact that this week means payday for territorial government workers, some of whom feel they have reason for concern. Joining us from our Iqaluit studio is APTN's Nunavut correspondent, Kent Driscoll. Tell us, Kent, did the people get paid on time?
Thank you. And yes, for the most part, the government of Nunavut's 5,010 employees territory-wide were paid on time today. The only exception is for the small group of GN employees who do not receive direct deposit and are not located in Iqaluit. Their checks will arrive on Monday. We contacted a government of Nunavut spokesperson to find out just how many of those people were there who weren't getting paid. They were unable to answer that question for us prior to this. Now, the government of Nunavut announced back on Wednesday that everyone would be paid on time today. They were confident that it would get done. But to say people were skeptical, well, that would be an understatement. On Wednesday and Thursday, I talked to close to 20 different government of Nunavut employees here in Iqaluit. Now, you got to remember, 37% of all people in Nunavut who have a job, they work for the government of Nunavut. So these people aren't hard to find. They're the people you see at the coffee shop. They're the people you meet in the lineup at the post office. And I was just asking them, do you think you're going to get paid on time? The answers ranged from, I sure hope so, to no, I don't think so. No one that I spoke with was confident that the government would get this done. But despite the public skepticism, it was. Now, another major cash provider here in Nunavut is the Department of Social Services. There's over 14,000 Nunavut residents who receive some sort of funding from social assistance. The government announced that student funding, adult learning funding, and payments to foster parents were also paid on time today, as well as payments to social assistance clients here in Iqaluit. The people who aren't receiving money are the social assistance clients who don't live in Iqaluit. They're still receiving food vouchers, which is fine for food, but for paying gas, for paying heat, for paying rent, for everything that isn't food, those people are still waiting. Now, the health department is still going without their telehealth system. The telehealth is a way you can meet with a southern-based doctor via video conference. And their Meditech system is also still down. That's the one that sends medical images from small communities to regional hubs and then down south for further analysis. The bigger question of how could an entire government fall for such a well-known, well-documented hack, well, that's still very much to be answered. Right now, for the government of Nunavut, it's a case of putting out this fire before they get around to the arson investigation. Back to you in Winnipeg.
Thanks for that, Kent. We need to take a break, but there's still more news ahead, and here's a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting off on the east coast, we've got 0 and rain in St. John's, -3 and sunshine in Fredericton. Nukeswaks -4 and snow. Le Grand River, snow and -7. Chibougamau -12, sunshine. Sed Hills -4 and sunny. North Bay -5 with sunshine, -6 and sunny in Ottawa. -4 and snow in Big Trout Lake, mix of sun and cloud, and 3 in Thunder Bay. -10 and snow in Churchill, -3 and snow in God's Lake and Norway House. 0 for Barons River and Princess Harbor, and 4 and snow for Brandon. 1 in sunshine in Saskatoon, but cloudy everywhere else. 1 in snow in Yorkton and North Battleford. -10 and snowing in Stony Rapids. -10 and clear in Uranium City. Welcome back. Saskatoon, Saskatchewan has a troubled history with policing. Have things got any better in recent years? APTN Investigates reporter John Murray went to Saskatoon to find out and spoke with Dennis Ward about what he learned.
John, good to see you. Why did you visit Saskatoon for this story on policing?
Well, for one thing, there's a long history with policing in Saskatoon. It goes back to the Neil Stone Trial Inquiry, allegations of Starlight Tours and abuse. And the other thing was, I was in Saskatoon last season for a story, and while I was doing an interview, we got interrupted by a police protest. So of course, that piqued my curiosity.
So who did you talk with?
I spoke with a few people, one person in particular, Dion Ladisser. He was tasered by the Saskatoon Police Service when they came into his home without a warrant. Another person I talked to was Charmaine Drever. She tragically lost her son after he was arrested after being in a high-speed truck crash following a chase. And then the last person I spoke to was Erica Violet Lee, who is an activist and an academic. And she's working on her degree in Toronto right now, but she still comes back to Saskatoon, and she grew up in Saskatoon. And she is, part of her academic work is focusing on policing in Saskatoon. And as well, she has a fear of the police in Saskatoon.
So John, what are the next steps for the people involved?
Well, for Dion, he's filing a civil lawsuit, so he's still pursuing action, even though he has failed at the Public Complaints Commission and other complaints through other processes. So he's left with a civil lawsuit. Charmaine Drever, she's looking for change. She wants a change in the system on how police investigate themselves. She wants an independent oversight body like other provinces have. Saskatchewan is the last place to not have an independent body oversee the police, or to have an independent body to oversee the police. And Erica Violet Lee, she wants to see change come, but she feels it comes from the community. It's not going to come from the Saskatoon Police Service.
Well, John, looking forward to seeing it. Thanks for taking some time to talk about it with us.
Thank you, Dennis.
You can watch Bad Guys, that's John Murray's second part of a look into policing in Canada on APTN right after tonight's news. We take a moment now to remember a Mi'kmaq mother. Marina Beadle died of stroke in hospital on Wednesday at the age of 63. Beadle took Canada to court over Jordan's principal in an effort to help her disabled son, Jeremy. Her case was eventually heard in federal court, where a judge agreed Canada has a duty to help pay for Jeremy's at-home medical care. Beadle also became the subject of a documentary on child welfare. Here now is an encore presentation of Trina Roche's story, brought to you in 2016.
Did you say? I wouldn't trade Jeremy for anybody else.
Marina Beadle and her son Jeremy Maywaski arrive at the Atlantic Film Festival to screen a new documentary by Alanisa Bomsawim, which features the family's fight for health services.
And we're tired of suffering, the things that we had to suffer to just to get a little help.
Bomsawim's film, We Can't Make the Same Mistake Twice, chronicles the long legal battle before the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal, which found Canada discriminates in how it delivers child welfare on reserve.
I want this generation of kids to know one thing. I don't know if we're going to be successful at the tribunal, but I do want them to know that we love them enough to fight for them.
A central part of the tribunal's ruling on child welfare is Jordan's principle, which ensures kids living on reserve receive equal health care without delay. Marina Beadle won her own court case 3 years ago, a battle over which level of government should pay for the home care of her son who has special needs.
And it's been a lifetime of battle, too. And so when they didn't really want to help us, you know, all those years that I've been asking for help ever since he was a baby.
Despite the court victory and the tribunal's orders, Jordan's principle is still not fully implemented today.
That would be an honor, real big, huge honor, is to see that it's implemented totally across Canada to help other children and their families so that they don't have to go through the same thing that I did.
Critics say the Liberals are dragging their feet.
But we have a government that is continuing to play games with the Human Rights Commission, continuing to play games with Cindy Blackstock, and we have children who are continuing to die.
The tribunal has rapped the federal government's knuckles, most recently last week, urging Ottawa to take action.
We have now had 2 compliance orders issued by the Human Rights Tribunal that this government is ignoring.
The response from Indigenous Affairs Minister Carolyn Bennett.
We pay for the programs on child welfare, but the provinces deliver it. But we are committed to be accountable for the outcomes. And that means there's going to have to be significant reforms in the way this is done.
That gap between the federal and provincial governments is exactly what Jordan's principle is supposed to fix. But Marina Beadle is optimistic the Trudeau government will step up.
Because it takes time to fix up what somebody else left behind.
Though Ottawa has thrown cash at child welfare and Jordan's principle, the tribunal wants details on what the Trudeau government plans to do by the end of October. Trina Roach, APTN National News, Halifax.
That story was back from the fall of 2016. It was one of many that we brought you on Marina Beadle and her son Jeremy. Along with Jeremy, Beadle is also survived by her son Jonathan, who lives in Pictou Landing. We're told that the family is talking about who will now will give care to Jeremy. Marina Beadle will be buried on Monday. It's time for us to take another break. We've got more news ahead, but first, here's the rest of tomorrow's weather. Off to northern Alberta we go. -7 in sunshine in Fort Chip, +1 in Fort McMurray and cloud. Sunshine in Edmonton, 6 degrees, sunny and 7 in Calgary. Tofino's rainy and 12 degrees, 13 in rain in Victoria, 11 in rain in Vancouver. Dease Lake, snow and 4 degrees, -6 in Fort Nelson. -16 with a mix of sun and cloud in Dawson City, -28 and clear in Old Crow. Wauhee, -16 in snow. Wrigley, mix of sun and cloud, -20. Fort McPherson, mix of sun and cloud, and -21. Nunavut, -21. -25 in cloud in Cambridge Bay, -21 in snow in Baker Lake. Arvia, -13 and snowing. Igloolik, -21 and clear skies, -11 and clear in Iqaluit. Welcome back. Tomorrow is the anniversary of Louis Riel's execution, and the city of Ottawa honored Riel and the Métis today. It's quite an about-face from 134 years ago, and as Todd Lamoran reports, today's events began with the infinity symbol flag being raised high.
Métis Nation of Ontario's president for the Ottawa area and the city's mayor did the honors. The first time the Métis flag is flown in front of City Hall.
And we think we have taken a great step today with the flag, with everyone being here in support of Métis growth and reconciliation.
Mayor Jim Watson called the moment a proud one for Ottawa.
Well, it's a recognition that we have a very vibrant and dynamic Indigenous community, whether it's First Nations, Métis, Inuit, and it's an opportunity for us to show respect to the Métis community and to signify the importance of Louis Riel in our country's history.
Just steps away from the flagpole is this brick building with a black statue in front of it. A reminder of Riel being important in history, but for a different reason.
It's fascinating when you look behind you, there's an armory that generated troops that actually went out and fought in 1885.
While the statue honors 2 soldiers who fell during the Battle of Cut Knife, Saskatchewan in 1885.
Louis Riel was also elected a member of Parliament, and obviously it was the Prime Minister of the day and his cabinet that made the decision to execute Louis Riel.
But today was about honoring Riel as the rehabilitated statesman. And lately he's gotten several honors, such as this coin with his likeness that was unveiled in Winnipeg late last month.
And this is the first coin that the Mint has ever produced that has Mitchell written on it.
In fact, It says Métis Nation leader in Michif. As for the infinity flag, President Joss hopes it's raised every year, something Mayor Watson agrees with.
We'd be happy to do it and accommodate them on Louis Riel Day.
And it's just a great reflection of a relationship we're building with the city. It's always been there, but now we're trying to make it better.
Flying the flag here in Ottawa was just one of many events across Ontario, with more planned nationwide on the anniversary of his execution. Todd Lamarand, APTN National News, Ottawa.
From local powwows to the red carpet at the Grammys, a drum group from Alberta has already been recognized for its traditional music, but now their recognition has gone international. Tamara Pimentel has the story.
They made their debut at the Grammys in February. Now the Young Spirit singers have been signed on with Sakamoto, an international talent agency that represents some big names in the music industry.
Guys like Keith Urban, Johnny Reid. I think it's pretty surreal to think that, you know, the music that we're doing, the singing and the drums and whatnot, it was actually outlawed about 60 years ago. It was against the law to practice what we do. And to see that it's being rejoiced around the world as something that's beautiful and amazing, it's a great feeling.
Jacob Faithful of Young Spirit spoke with APTN while traveling to his home in Lethbridge. Young Spirit is based out of Frog Lake Cree Nation in Alberta. Faithful says when the group was founded in 2001, its main purpose was to inspire Indigenous youth.
Young Spirit, the name itself, it speaks volumes to our mission as a group. Our mission as a group is to empower our youth to pick up the drum, to sing our song, to learn the traditional songs, to learn our language.
And the Cree language may be displayed at some big upcoming concerts.
You know, we're in discussions with several different tours that are coming up. There's some very big artists that we've been approached by to be opening acts for. I think it's huge for the younger people that are maybe aspiring to become artists, either if it's their own music or if it's traditional music. I think it's broadening the horizon. It's definitely something that I feel the youth can look forward to in the future.
Tamara Pimentel, APTN National News, Fairview, Alberta.
That is amazing. Well, that is your news for this Friday. We leave you now with some other amazing footage. This is one of a couple of die-hard golf fans from Yellowknife, Northwest Territories. It was minus 27 degrees in the capital city, but that did not stop these two back nine warriors from dusting off the clubs and crushing a bucket of balls in the frigid morning air. I'm Melissa Ridgen. Have a great night.